What's going on, guys, and welcome back to DriveHub. And in today's video, we're continuing the updates on the C5 Corvette by adding a touchscreen double-din radio with Apple CarPlay. Alright, so what you guys are going to need for this installation process, first of all, a T15 Torx, a Phillips head screwdriver, and a 9/32 ratchet. Of course, you're going to need your new double-din center console and all the mounting brackets that come with that. Your double-din radio of choice. In my case, we're going to be putting in the Pioneer MVH1400NEX. I also needed this access interface thing. It's like this set of amps and wiring harnesses so that you can retain the factory premium sound system that's in your car. And in my case, my Corvette was equipped with the Bose sound system, so it told me that I needed this thing. Also for tools, you're going to need a drill with some drill bits and either a Dremel tool or a Sawzall with a metal blade. So first things first, in my install, we're going to have to paint this new double-din center console to match the rest of the interior. And when I was researching what to paint this thing with, there was all sorts of horror stories about people using cheaper paints and having the finish crack on them or just wear off. And that was something I really didn't want to happen. I wanted this to look like it came this way from the factory. And on every forum I read, Color Bond came up as the top choice. So Color Bond hooked me up with some of their prep cleaner. Then I'm going to be hitting it with the adhesion promoter, followed by the finishing touch. This is their LVP refinisher. This is OEM finish Chevy Jet Black, so it's going to match my interior to an OEM finish. I'm really excited to use this stuff. I've heard nothing but great comments about these products. So as I said, we're going to start with the prep cleaner, clean this thing up. Then we're going to hit it with some of this adhesion promoter. This will prevent against flaking and cracking and peeling of the paint. Then we'll hit it with the refinisher. Alright guys, so while the new center console is drying, we're going to begin to pull this interior apart. Alright, so first things first, you're going to go ahead and open the center console and remove these two nut covers that expose these 10mm nuts. So I have one missing, I didn't realize. But you can either use a flathead screwdriver, or in my case, it looks like it's barely hanging on anyways. Go ahead and pry that up and take out these two 10mm bolts. That's right, yes, I forgot to mention you're also going to need a 10mm, my bad. Someplace you're not going to lose them. Next, while we're down here, we're going to pry up this traction control panel. We're going to unplug the two harnesses that are in here. There's two. Now there's another two 10mm nuts in there you got to remove. Take these and put them somewhere you're not going to lose those ones. Next, we're going to remove the ashtray and remove the T15 Torx in there. And this other one next to the cigarette lighter. Next, we're going to go up here by the steering wheel and pry off with a flathead screwdriver the square cover over here. Just pries off, clips on the side. There's a little area to get a pry tool or a flathead screwdriver, and we're going to remove the T15 Torx in there. So now we're all set. Oh, one thing I forgot to do is to just disconnect this cigarette lighter up here. Two little tabs on each side. Okay, so we're going to remove the 4 bolts that are holding on the glove box cover. Be careful, I've heard these are pretty fragile. And that'll come off just like that. Nice.
Nice.
Put these screws somewhere you're not going to lose them. Probably still will lose them. Okay, so now we're just going to lift up the center console, slide it backwards. And before you go too far with it, unplug the fuel door. There's a little tab. There's a little tab and a harness at the bottom here. Make a stupid face when you do it so that you know that it's working. And there's that. And now this part is free. Some sort of pill. If this video gets 10,000 likes, I'll eat it. Just kidding. I don't know what the hell that is. Clean that up later. Okay, so now we're all set to get this out of the way. Pull it up to get it clear of those two screws right there. Whole thing slides back. Get the shift boot out of the way. It just has little tabs inside of it. Yep. Comes up like that. Get it up like that. Then there's one more plug holding the cigarette lighter on. Can't really show you. It's difficult. Comes off just like that. Now your old factory din-and-a-half console is out of the way. And there's a spider on there. Great! Oh, goody! Now it's time to remove the factory radio in the heater and air control unit. Take your 930 seconds. You have 2 bolts for each. 1 on each side for the radio, and 1 on each side for the heat and air conditioning. And number 4, we're going to slide the AC unit out. There's 1 large connector on the back. Shimmy that out. Now you have the heat and air controls out. Mine is broken. Now we can slide the radio out. Oof, that thing's in there. Whew. This old dinosaur out of here. And we're gonna unplug all the different connections that are in the back. This last one wants to be the difficult one. Alright, now we have the old head unit out. Alright guys, so now it's time to remove this top shelf. This has to come out so that we can put the double din in. Some people said use a grinder, some people said use a Sawzall, some people said they drill it out. So what I'm going to try first, so I don't look like a complete hack, is to try to drill out the rivets. We'll see if that works, and if not, we'll resort to my lovely friend, the Sawzall. Make sure you tuck the old harnesses out of the way. I don't want to be accidentally hitting them.
A few moments later.
Alright, so now that we have the shelf pieces cut out, don't need those anymore. We can take our X-piece bracket thing and line it up here so we can drill our holes. Put the factory screws in just to hold that in place while we drill. Now it says we have to drill 1, 2, 3, 4 1/8-inch holes. I read elsewhere that it's 1/4 inch, so we're going to start with an 1/8-inch hole, and we can always go bigger. We can't go smaller. That's what she said.
That's what she said.
Looks like for this last one, they want you to drill way too close to this, where the mounting bolt is, so I'm going to have to remove that. Okay, so we've got those in. Now we can go ahead and remove this. Get it out of the way. Yep, so the 1/4 inch is the right one, not the 1/8 inch. As you can see, these pins are supposed to go into these holes right here. And the other ones line up for the bolts, while these push pin things are supposed to go into those ones. Those are too small, so we're going to drill those out to 1/4 inch. Alright, now the HVAC system fits perfect. Okay, so now we're inside on the workbench, and we're going to open up the 1400NEX and put on the side mount thingies. I don't know exactly what they're called. Here's our little mount thingies, and they're not labeled, just kidding. One of them says R, one of them doesn't have anything. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and assume that R means right side. Depends which way you're looking at it, I guess. The helpful hint I heard was on Pioneers, there's a line right here. You line that up with your mounting bracket and that'll give you a good starting point. Yeah, that looks like it lines up. Grab the big bag of screws and start putting them in.
Later.
Alright guys, what is going on? It is now day 2 of this installation. Something came up yesterday, I had to stop working on it. Alright, so where we left off, we have attached the mounts to the side of the head unit, and off camera I did a little bit of adjustments to make sure that it fit about as well as I could make it fit. You could probably spend hours and hours worth of time adjusting the mounts and all that, and the brackets, and making sure that the head unit sits square in the new center console. I got mine to a spot that I'm comfortable with. I really don't want to spend much more time thoroughly adjusting all the mounts and stuff. I'm not very good at that anyways. But where it sits now, it looks good, it looks clean, and it fits well. So I have the head unit mocked up in there now. Next, what we're going to do is unbolt it, take it out, and then we're going to begin wiring it, which I'm not looking forward to at all. So as I'm removing this head unit, I did have to drill 2 new holes in the mounting system. I don't know what you would call this. For some reason, my mounts, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, there's no hole here for where the factory mount was. This one lines up with the factory mount, and then those 2 I had to drill so that I had 4 mounting points. I suppose you could just do the 1 factory mounting point and then drill another hole, but I would have rather had 4 bolts holding this in as opposed to 2. It's not like this thing weighs very much at all. I mean, for the size of it, it's actually incredibly light, but still, when I'm driving like an asshole, I don't want it to be moving around. Alright guys, so for wiring, woohoo, yeah, so excited. So you have the access thing here, that goes away, we don't need it, and then you have the rest of the access harness. Now on this end of the access harness, we're going to have to connect that. This is the Pioneer harness. We're going to have to connect those 2 together. Now on the instructions for the access interface, there is a list of the wires and where they have to go. So I'm basically going to go ahead now. I'm going to match up the colors with the other colors, and then I'm going to solder them on. Please don't make fun of my soldering skills too much. I literally soldered for the first time yesterday. We're going to get these 2 harnesses matched up, solder them together, then we're going to have to go into the car and find an accessory wire. Okay, so we have the harness wired up, and now we're under the dash here on the passenger side by the computer. You'll see those 3 wires right there that are hanging out, not connected to anything. The yellow one is where we're going to grab our accessory power from and send that up to the head unit. The black, of course, is the ground, and the orange, I believe, is constant power. So that's where we're going to grab accessory power from. These wires were just hanging out on mine. We're going to use a quick splice and tap into that to get power for the radio.
Later.
Alright guys, so a little bit of a disruption in the video. Some stuff in the installation kind of went haywire, so I figured I'd take this time now to show you where I messed up, because it turns out a lot of people, when installing this stuff in a C5 Corvette, end up with the same problems. So where we left off, I was soldering the connections from the Pioneer head unit to the access interface. And off camera, I plugged everything in to test it, and whenever I turned the radio up a little bit, not very loud at all, every speaker was crackling and there was a constant loud humming sound from the speaker somewhere around here. And no matter what I did, it wouldn't shut up. So I double checked my connections, made sure everything was in the right spot, made sure I had a good ground, everything was solid. So I then reached out to a mechanic friend of mine. He told me to check a couple things, which I did. Nothing did the trick. So it turns out, and this one's on me, that on the instructions in little tiny letters, it says that 2 of the harnesses are the exact same on the access interface. And lo and behold, I had it backwards. So as soon as I fixed that, I plugged everything in and the stereo sounded great. But then there was a problem. Every time I put the key in, the radio would turn on. Not even if I turned it to accessory or ignition, the minute I put the key in the keyhole, the radio powered up, even though nothing else on the car was powering up. Obviously this is a problem, and it was even more of a problem when I went to turn the car on and nothing happened. It was almost like the car didn't realize that the clutch pedal was in, it didn't try to turn over or anything. I just got a couple clicks down in the passenger footwell, obviously the relay or something down there was clicking, but nothing happened. So I tried to do some more research, read a couple forums, nothing really helped. So my second thought was when we went to tap a wire down in the passenger side footwell, as I said, there are 3 wires, an orange wire, a yellow wire, and a black wire that's ground. From everything I read, the yellow wire was switched accessory, the orange wire was constant, and the black obviously was ground. So I double checked, made sure I had the yellow accessory wire, because the way the car was behaving, it was like I tapped into the constant power wire, so everything had power all the time. I even went as far as to disconnect the yellow wire and plug into the orange wire to see if anything changed. Maybe I read wrong on the forums, or maybe they color-coded my wires differently on my car by mistake. Sure enough, nothing changed. So again, I double checked all my connections, made sure everything was solid and correct, and this whole time I'm trying to read on forums, on reviews to find out if I did something wrong or if there's some little trick to this thing. So turns out there is. So on the access interface, there are 2 red wires that say it has to go to accessory. And there's 1 red wire coming out of the Pioneer harness that also has to go to accessory. And obviously you have to get the accessory power from somewhere. That's where we grabbed the yellow switched wire out of the Corvette and ran it up to the harness. So I had both the red wires out of the access interface, I had the red wire coming out of the Pioneer head unit harness, and the switched accessory wire that I ran from the Corvette all mounted together. And that's, I guess, where things got screwy. So upon reading some reviews, a couple people did say that their radios wouldn't turn off when they powered down the car, and that they would turn on the minute they put the key in the ignition. Some other people said that when they tried to start their car too, the car went into some security feature and wouldn't start. So there was my problem. And the problem lays in the fact that the 2 red wires coming out of the access interface aren't supposed to go to anything. Some people said that you can hook up one of them and it works fine, but in my installation, I had to completely bypass the red wires, the red accessory wires, coming out of the access interface. So the red wire that I had coming out of the Pioneer harness, I hooked up right to the switched accessory wire in the Corvette, the yellow wire down in the passenger footwell that I was talking about. Now the only thing with this is when you go to turn the car off, factory the radio stays on until you open the door. Now it shuts off when you power the car down. And honestly, I was so fed up I wasn't going to do any more digging to find out how I can make the radio stay on for a couple more seconds before I open the door. That just wasn't that big of a deal to me. So I figured I would tell you guys what happened with my stereo install. I know I didn't get any of it on film, but how was I supposed to film an installation if I myself had no idea what I was doing? That would be no help to you guys. But I hope me sharing with you guys what went wrong with my install will help some other people further down the line when they go to do this and know what to do if they have the same Pioneer head unit to access interface mess up that I did. So once I figured out all the wiring and everything, made sure the radio worked, I did have to drill another hole in the factory Corvette radio mount so that I could mount 3 bolts on the new Pioneer head unit, and that's basically where we're at now. The radio is hardwired and mounted in, the HVAC controls are mounted in, and I've started reinstallation of the center console. Now I'm working on the back half. So however you do that, you're basically reversing the process that we did to take everything out. Right now I'm about to plug back in the drive mode selector, traction control button switch thing, and the rest of the center console, the back piece. So let's get started. Alright guys, so the install is finally complete. This took way longer than it should have, and I'm sorry this video was so kind of here and there and everywhere, but I just wanted to make sure that I was doing everything correctly so that I could then share to you guys what you could do and how you could avoid the problems that I had. And even during reassembly, I ran into another issue. For some reason, the fact that I had the orange illumination wire coming from the access harness to the orange and white wire that was also illumination out of the Pioneer harness, I kept blowing the fuse for the trunk opener. I have no idea why, and it happened twice, so I cut that wire out. It turns out you don't need it, but now that it's in, it operates great. It works really, really well. It's very, very cool, and it's an amazing update to the C5 platform. I've got Apple CarPlay in here. I believe this can do Android Auto. Bluetooth, aux input. I did hard mount my microphone for Bluetooth up here. But yeah, it's a very, very nice update to the Corvette. After I buttoned up the interior, I detailed it quick with my Liquid X Car Care interior cleaners. And the color bond paint that I used to paint this console looks absolutely fantastic. It matches the interior perfectly, especially after I used some VLR spray on it. It added a little bit of sheen to it. So if you guys are looking to do this project and you're gonna need to paint your double din new console, I highly recommend going to Color Bond Paint. I'll include a link for them down in the description below and include the products that I used for this, because in my jet black interior it matches phenomenally and it looks really, really good. And it was very easy to do. So I'll include a link for both the Color Bond paint that I used and the Pioneer 1400NEX and the access interface that I used to connect it all. I'll include links for all that down in the description below, so if you want the same exact look that I went for in my Corvette. And the one thing that I'm not too happy with this whole install is if you look closely, I mean, you wouldn't notice it unless I pointed it out, but the radio sits just a little bit off than the actual console. Now I did try adjusting the mounts on the head unit. I filed some of the mounts out and tried to adjust it. I was able to move it a little bit, but honestly I could have spent forever trying to adjust it, and I was already so deep into this project, I just wanted the thing in. So to me it looks great. I mean, the C5 gaps on the interior are really far from perfect anyway, so it almost looks like this is factory. I mean, hey, it's... Now, I did try to shim the new console a little bit, but when you add in the rear section and the two mounting points up here, it wasn't gonna work. So I'm happy with the install. I'm happy with the interface. Everything's working as it should now. I'm happy, and I'm most of all happy that this project is finally over. So if you guys have any questions, because this wasn't a very good install video on my part, if you have any questions or concerns, comment them down below and I'll try my best to answer them for you. Again, head units shouldn't be this difficult to install. I guess with the C5, mine just had more trial and error than any other head unit install I've had to do. I put the head unit in my Jeep Wrangler in about 15 minutes. It was done and in, but... So again, thank you all so much for watching. Shout out to Color Bond Paint for hooking me up with the paint and prep stuff to make this new center console match the rest of my interior. It looks absolutely phenomenal and really is the finishing touch on this whole project. But that's it for me today. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Happy motoring.